Hey, Paul Morrow again. I'm back, Smart Financial, super smart lifestyle stories, and I have a great guest today. We're going to talk about one of the biggest worry beads of parents and kids, education. Education costs. Hey, Dave,
How are you?
thanks for joining us. We're going to go through all the nuts and bolts, all the gritty, all the good stuff and the bad stuff. But before we get started, people might look at you and say, he doesn't look like a Connecticut Yankee, but tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I am a Connecticut Yankee, and I still kind of root for the Yukon Huskies. I'm a avid fan.
Go Huskies. But
Right.
being at Northeastern alumni, we have Huskies too.
Yeah, we also stole our coach from Northeastern, Jim Calhoun. So that's another story.
So
Anyway,
you started in the 1980s. You went to UConn.
yep,
Okay.
went to Yukon, got out in 81, then got right into the retirement planning wealth management. By 1989, I decided to get my own company going. I didn't want to work for a bigger firm, went off on my own. It was also the year that I got my certified financial planning designation. And then a couple years after that, met my wife. We got married in 1992. Her name's Leslie. And that was also the year that the 529 college savings plan started. So as you can imagine, starting your own business, we kind of had a lot of clients. I was 33. A lot of them were wondering about how to pay for college back in 1993. Believe it or not, it was very expensive. Well, take education inflation, it's really gone up a lot. So it's gotten a lot more dizzying and daunting for a lot of families.
But it's
But
got great
yeah,
value. I will tell you, a lot of folks that are listening are following us on YouTube. They follow our channel, Smart Financial. In the books that I've written on money for the young people, again, I'll hold up my wealth building book. Do you know that people that get a college education end up with three times the net worth of people who don't get a college education? So, guess what? Education is one great path to building net worth. Now, of course, I would say, Dave, uh, you know, there are lots of electricians and plumbers and tradespeople who have wonderful careers, great pensions. Also, they don't, not everybody has to go to college. However, as far as the top 10 goals of parents when you're looking in the crib when your kids are born, I mean, college is way up there, right? I mean, college is like something that worries parents really for the first 18 years. So tell me, what do we do about these kids that are not Mensas, that don't get a free ride for playing hockey or go to Quinnipiac for free to play whatever it is, lacrosse? I mean, the non-exceptional, let's just call them the regular hardworking students that don't get a free ride to Harvard or Princeton or something. What do we do for them?
well, I'll tell you right now, for the B student, the C student, as long as they try hard, there's a place for them. There's a place for them. Now, it may not be Duke or MIT, but what we always want to make sure is that the family always starts early in this process so they can identify where that particular student might have strong skill sets. For example, they might be great in math, not so great in English. Well, guess what? Maybe an engineer or business or accounting student might be a good career path for them. So I always say if you have a hardworking B student, and of course, Harry Truman said the smartest people are the most successful were C students. So I will tell you that nothing wrong with being a B student. There's plenty of room, there's plenty of opportunity, but families should get involved as early as possible in the process in
So,
order to make
one of
that
the
become
things that we're
reality.
going to talk about, and by the way, at the end of this podcast, if you folks stay on, listen to all the great stuff Dave's got to say, we're going to have a complete link on our website to his firm, right? And it's going to give you the opportunity to contact him and hear about their consulting business, which, by the way, starts even for juniors in college prep, picking schools and doing all that sort of thing,
We
right?
start in the eighth grade, believe it or not, now.
In the eighth grade. Wow.
It's
Okay.
so important. I
All
mean, I
right.
got to
So,
tell you, Paul, I got to tell you that parents always come up to me and say, when's the best time to start this process? Well, I always say when you got married and you got your blood test when you had your first child, that's a great time to start your 529 plan, parents, to tell you the truth. But not many people do that. Very rarely does that happen. But I would say by the freshman, sophomore year, get your students engaged. In our program, for example, we have mentoring with recently college graduated people They meet with the student. What we do is the first thing you should do is just get an idea of a possible career path, college choice and major, assessments, evaluations. And that's how you get started because you don't want to bog a student down in their junior and senior year with having to do a million dizzying and daunting things.
Yep.
on-
Right. I
on-
noticed that your contract is very comprehensive. We're going to have it online, and
Yep.
it includes everything. And I'll just run through a few of the things I thought were interesting about ACP. Again, let's see. This is advanced college planning, right?
Yes, sir.
ACP, not CPA, right? I'm
Right.
tied over this for sure. But anyway, it's it's testing prep, personalized college search, college visit checklist, admission, like a lot of stuff. Parents come to us a lot of times, in the financial world, and it's all about the money. It's all about the money, and it's all about the money. And sometimes it's about the money after their daughter goes to the mailbox and brings home a letter and drops it on daddy, says, Daddy, I got into Harvard. And then they go diving for the checkbook and all that kind of stuff, which is a little bit of a little late to the game. So,
Hmm.
Dave, just give me, I know you have like sort of a bullet process that
Hmm.
your firm, but where do parents start? Let's just go with number one. If you're a midlife person, and again, I have a whole book I wrote about folks that are in their 40s and 50s, and I'll tell a little joke about that. When my son went to Trinity, I was at a game and I'm standing next to a guy, and I said, "Wow, it's great you can come here to watch your grandchildren, play sports." And he was all white-haired guy, and he was about.
Yeah.
He said, "That's not my grandchild, that's my son, right?"
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he didn't
People are
have any
having kids
babies.
later.
Yeah, a late life dad at 48. And then he joked with me and says, "Yeah, I had my kids so late, Social Security's paying the college bill." And I went, "Well, you're lucky dog." Anyway, so give me like the two or three bullet points of what to do first.
Okay, I'll make it quick. I always say identify early enough in the process, and I say freshman, sophomore year. Parents, your number one goal is really we got a four-pronged mission statement. Number one, get your students into the best fit schools for them.
Okay.
Number two, at the lowest possible cost you can pay. Number three, without changing your lifestyle. And number four, without ruining your retirement, hopefully enhancing your retirement. That's where you start in this process. Freshman, sophomore year. I'm not going to go all the bullet points, but this is a much more competitive world nowadays, Paul. And you're seeing a lot more go into the process of students competing against students for those high level schools that they all want to go to. Hey, when I was a student, I chose UConn, the only school, and I went there. That's what all my buddies did, But now it's become much more competitive. Students want, and the parents want to see their kids get into the very best schools they possibly can. I mean, think about it. Getting your students involved is tough enough for a parent. I used to tell my very intelligent daughters, I used to say, girls, it's time for you to study for the SAT prep. You're juniors. We got to get you to get some good marks on that SAT. And they'd say, Mom, Dad, he's driving us crazy. He's nagging us again. And the problem was I became a big nag. That's why I sent my daughters to the people who work in my business who are able to be good mentor coaches to help them get through the student positioning process, which is a lot.
Student positioning, that's a good line. So
Yeah.
tell me about that because I've met over the years a lot of dads that have gotten up at 5 in the morning for ice time because they were convinced their son was going to be the one to get the hockey scholarship. I have two young ladies who got full rides to Princeton to play women's hockey, but that's pretty rare. But I'm sure you see a lot of disappointed sports parents, right?
Oh, tons of them. And unfortunately, it never really pans out because a lot of schools can't give out athletic scholarships. I mean, how many kids can actually play for the UConn men's basketball team or the UConn women's basketball team, number one and number six in the country right now, and get a full ride, let alone this new NIL money that they're getting, these big, big salaries they're now getting. It's very difficult. For most of the students we've seen, we've got two Division I athletes that actually went on and played significant sports in college. But for the most part, the kid who's really great on the rowing team, and he wants to row with his friends in college and go to a school like Bates or Trinity that has a rowing team. It's really important, but just know that there's not as much money as you think. And it's hard. You might get 10,000, but it's not going to make major impact on what you end up paying for college. And a lot of times they'll just give you less merit-based aid, realizing they gave you believe it or not, an athletic scholarship.
All
So,
right, so that's a really good point. Let's just like break this down because I know parents get all tongue-tied with the language. So can
yeah.
you just succinctly explain college loans versus merit-based aid versus any other type of money that you get to go to college? What are the categories?
The categories are simple. There's two types of aid. And, I don't even put athletic scholarships towards that
Okay.
because it's very rare. Let's talk about the two major aids. All right. Need-based aid and merit-based aid. That's all there is at the end of the day. Need-based aid is broken up into grants. If a family has low resources and they qualify for need-based aid, they're going to get grants at certain schools, grant potential. The other types of need-based aid are Stafford loans. Stafford loans are loans that a student can take out in his or her name, end up paying a low interest rate. You can get a subsidized and unsubsidized loan where you don't even have to actually start paying on the unsubsidized until 6 months after you graduate from college. Those are the loans in the student's own name that I like a lot. I would, I would sincerely try your best to stay away from Parent Plus loans. All they are is really credit card solicitations. The interest is not tax deductible. And guess what, parent? Your name's going to be on them. So if your son drops out, decides college isn't for him, that loan quickly becomes your loan. And if you start stacking these and getting more and more just to see if you can get through college and have 100 to 200,000 dollars of loans, like my brother-in-law who became a doctor, he had paid his last loan. I was telling Paul earlier, he didn't finish paying his student loans until he was 55. It
Yeah.
becomes very tedious and you ruin your possible retirement, as you know, Paul. So I would say, first of all, loans. You can take out loans. The second thing is grants. That's need-based aid and comprises that. I would only take a look, parents, at Stafford loans. We direct people to Stafford loans that the colleges offer in the student's name so they don't get out with a heavy burden. You
Tell
might
me
get,
what the function of the FAFSA form is that so many parents ask about.
yeah, the FAFSA form. If you want any need-based aid, parents, you have to complete a FAFSA and profile form for private schools or even an institution form. You might be filling out three financial aid forms. And you don't want to make mistakes on these because they'll just put you in the bottom of the line and you probably won't qualify for need-based aid because you're late. So the FAFSA forms, how important is it? I've got people come up to me all the time. Gee, I make too much money. I'm not even going to complete. I'm not going to pay for the services to have those completed for me. I heard they're really painful. I don't want to do it. I know I'm not going to get need-based aid. Why should I do them? Well, if you don't do them, 75% of the colleges that offer the scholarships, the merit-based aid, guess what? You won't get a scholarship unless you complete the need-based aid forms. So
Oh,
you
interesting.
want to make sure that you apply at all times so you don't lose out on the merit-based aid that now colleges are not giving unless you complete the financial aid forms. So that's a misnomer. Don't make the mistake of not completing financial aid forms, period.
I know that when my daughter went to Carnegie Mellon and then she went to Boston University and she's a creative, she's in the production business. And I remember how she had to produce something like on a CD, like a little movie or something, and she got a big chunk of money from BU's School of Fine Arts and whatever design. But it was
Smart girl.
all had all to do with her, nothing to do with me. She earned it, she got it. So for that, you call that merit-based aid. Now tell me, define for the parents that are listening and the folks, maybe even grandparents that are helping out with money,
Yeah.
what you call this thing the EFC, right?
Yes,
Let's talk about the EFC and what it really means.
that's a great question. All right, so what we typically do, you want to make sure before you apply to the colleges that you complete a worksheet. We have a worksheet that we complete with all your financials. The EFC generally is the amount of money that the colleges, after you do your financial exercise and give them all the information in a calculation, that's the amount that the colleges and the government both believe that you can afford to pay for your son or daughter's college education. For example, they're going to ask a lot of questions about your income. That's the number one variable, your adjusted gross income. It might be 250,000 between you and your wife, or it might be 100. The lower the better to get need-based aid. But they're going to ask questions about your holdings, your non-qualified holdings, money like savings accounts, brokerage accounts, mutual funds, CDs, you're going to have to reveal all of that on your financial aid form. So in order to figure it out, by working ahead of time to do the exercise that calculates your EFC, you can find out what it is.
And
That's
Dave,
very
so I
important.
mean, the point behind that is they expect you to spend your savings and your CDs and stuff like that on your child's education. But
Correct.
do they expect you to dip into your retirement funds?
If need be, they don't care. They're going to
Oh,
be really nice. You can call the admissions officer and you got into that college and you're trying to work with them to pay for it. They're going to be the nicest people in the world to you. But just know one thing, their number one objective is to give you as little money as they possibly can get away with giving you. So they're nice on the phone, but their goal is not to give you any of their money. They want you to pay, even if it's retirement dollars.
oh, interesting. Okay.
So just getting back to the EFC and how important it is, just as an example, if you did the exercise and you figured out your expected family contribution came out to 55,000, say, and that would basically mean there's a formula to figure out how much a college would give you in need-based aid. Let's take Northeastern. Northeastern University cost about $78,000. If your EFC is $55,000, that would be taking the cost of education, cost of tuition, all that stuff, cost of attendance at Northeastern. You take the 78, you would minus the 55, and you would indeed qualify for $23,000 of need-based aid. Simple calculation, right?
And that
However,
need-based aid, that's from the institution, not for any outside loan source or anybody else.
right.
That's the institution saying, okay, we'll cut the price.
Yeah, so basically 78,000 you're paying for cost of attendance minus your expected family contribution, you qualify for $23,000 of need-based aid. But here's where it gets good for you, parent. This is really important. This is something that will help you. If there's a way that we can lower that expected family contribution from 55,000 down to $40,000 by merely repositioning, redirecting some of your non-qualified savings accounts, assets, that could lower your EFC. For example, if we take $200,000 from your brokerage account, your savings accounts that you have too much money in that they see and shelter it into annuities or life insurance, you can actually lower your EFC from 55,000 down to 40,000. Now your need-based aid is Northeastern 78,000 minus 40. Now you just increase your need-based aid to $48,000 per year rather than just what I gave you earlier, 23,000.
What's
So,
interesting, Dave, is I just spoke to a family, and
yep,
this is a great story of today's what we call ex-geners. You know, the folks that are in my second book on planning, which has a lot of like topics for the 45 to 50-year-old person. But in this day and age today, I cannot believe how much money people have in their 401ks. And when they look at their assets and you say, well, how much money do you have? Well, 91% is in my retirement fund at work because that's just the way 401ks took off. So even if they got rid of their non-qualified money, let's say that couple came to you and they had
yeah.
3 million in their 401ks and 100,000 in the bank,
And the
can you
beautiful
still
thing, yep,
can
the
you help
beautiful
them? Yeah,
thing,
go ahead.
the beautiful thing about that, just to go a little bit further, I don't mean to talk over you, but the $3 million in that 401k is already sheltered. It's part of a
Oh,
retirement plan.
okay, good.
So
That's what I
that's
want to.
not even looked at.
Okay,
But that's how hard it is to get your EFC down because that leaves you with savings accounts, brokerage accounts, anything that's not a retirement account. If
okay.
you can reposition, redirect, and shelter that using a liquid annuity, you
Mhm.
just lowered your EFC by $15,000 a year. Times 4 years, that's $60,000. So that's a big chunk of
Yeah, it's a
change
big
that people
chunk.
are
And
moving
and
into.
those laws, Dave, that you're quoting or rules or whatever, that
Yeah.
insurance products and annuity products are what's called non-countable. Do you feel pretty comfortable that's I mean, you've been doing this for 30 years. Has that law always been the same? And do you think it's going to be the same in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I've been around for 32 years doing this, and they've always said, well, we're going to change things up and make them count, and they never have.
Okay,
So
good.
this is one of those things that if you have someone that, if you've got the expertise to do it yourself, look at single premium life insurance policies, look at indexed annuities with low surrender charges. This is a godsend. This has actually helped thousands over the last 32 years of our clients get their EFC lower. I mean, I'll just give you a beautiful feel-good story about a true story. Lisa out of Newington, husband died two daughters. The daughter gets into Fairfield. Fairfield 5 years ago cost $60,000 a year. She's a single mom. And she said, you know what, Dave, my EFC is 50,000. I said, that's because you have too much money in your brokerage account and savings account. Let's redirect those into an indexed annuity. We actually end up moving $300,000 into that annuity and lowered her EFC from 50,000 to 32,000. Guess what? When it came to getting her financial aid award offer, Fairfield gave her enough money to cover the need. They made up for it in need, 58 minus 32. They gave her $26,000 of need-based aid, plus the daughter earned a scholarship, and it only cost the parent $18,000 a year to send her daughter to college. Now, had she not did that simple 1 minute move, she'd probably end up paying about 40 to 43,000 instead of 18. So people, there are opportunities and strategies to be able to eliminate and lower your expected family contributions so that you can get more money from the colleges instead of using yours. And they don't want you to know that. And he'll tell you another good thing. Once you get that award offer, most people in the country, they don't even know. Let's say your daughter says, okay, I just got my award offer and I'm going to, let's use another college that I really do a lot with, Boston University. All right, so the daughter says, I got into Boston University. It costs 80,000. They gave me 60, and I think, mom, dad, your EFC was only 40. I mean, they're charging us too much. Well, what we do for clients after you get that award, now let's just say Sally, the daughter, this is her number one school. This is her dream school. This is the dream school she always went to. The financials dictate that the parents can only afford 40,000 hours on their EFC. The student is super smart, National Honor Society, second in the class, and deserves to get in. We will write appeal letters. We will write the college after we get the award offer an appeal letter saying, we believe Sally should have gotten more merit-based aid based on her class ranking, her grades, and what your other students are getting in terms of scholarships. We also believe that because they have a $40,000 expected family contribution and they'd have to pay 60,000 with you, that you're not meeting him to what they can actually afford. Therefore, we're applying for both need and merit-based aid. And what we also do is, what we will do is put in a rival college, like maybe Bentley, Boston College, something up in Boston. We'll put a rival college acceptance letter that perhaps would have given more money. So let's say Boston College, right down the street, probably a half a mile away from Boston University. Let's say Boston College came up and gave her $55,000 and met her need, but she really didn't want to go to Boston College. We'll use that letter as leverage, and they don't want to lose out with a great student. They don't want to lose out on that great student. So when they see the Boston College right up the road, rival letter come in with a better offer, they will probably reconsider and give her $20,000 more per year. And that's actually what happened to this particular student 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's a great story. I wanted to jump ahead to that. You just actually got ahead of me because I wanted to know, in your opinion, today, 2026, we're recording this. You guys, I'm sure, have a database and you keep track that some institutions of higher learning, colleges, universities, they're more, they give more financial aid than others, right? For students in certain categories, right? So do you help direct students to places where they're likely to get more aid for their particular specialty or qualifications? Is that the service that you guys do?
Great question. We know which colleges are good. We know which ones are naughty and we know which ones are not. So yeah, we've been around long enough and we've sent so many students to certain schools like the University of Hartford and UConn. We get consideration. They appreciate that and they know where these students are coming from. So that helps out being in the business for 32 years. The bottom line is this though, do we see, we stare? Yes, we have a team. First of all, our team, our mentor coaches, we want to make sure that the student goes through all the student positioning tools so we can identify the best career path, college choice, and major. Once we get that down, the student goes on official visits. We teach them how to do an interview so they can go back to that school that they really like after the official visits to see if they can get in. They go for the interview, and we do a couple more things to touch the school so that it can almost guarantee that they can get in. So it's a game being played here. And we find in the admissions process, the student that pays attention and sends that school more touches will be the one that gets into that school. So that school really wants, and they count the amount of times you register for the official visit. You ask them how many kids nowadays even ask for an interview to go to
Right.
meet the admissions officer and have an interview to get in there. Not many even know about it. And then
That's interesting.
after that, Paul, we tell them to send a nice thank you note a couple weeks later to that person who interviewed them. And then last but not least, we tell them to do a community service activity like a car wash for the homeless or a senior citizen Christmas carol. Tape it, say you're the leader, you did it, you're the vice president of the club. Send it to them right before you send out your Common App to that school. And guess what? When they get your Common App, they're going to say, "Oh, that's Jerry Jones. He applied that he came for the official visit. He came for an interview and he interviewed well." Another person says, "Oh, and he sent a nice thank you note." And then the last person says, "You know what? He does a lot of community service." This is the type of person that we want at our university. Let's get him in here. But you have to work just like
Yeah,
anything
that's
else. You have
true.
to be prepared.
I have one more funny story about college admissions, which is kind of my wife is going to hate me for telling you this, and so will Nicholas. But so
Sounds good.
here we go. Yeah. So anyway, I'm a busy dad. I'm doing my thing, right? So there was a schedule for my son was looking at different schools, and he had some, irons in the fire, some acceptances or whatever. And so the last school on the list was Trinity in Hartford. Okay. And
Love
we're
it.
a Connecticut family. I grew up in New Haven, and I used to go to the Sacred Heart School, and the nuns would take us on a little bus every year up to see Mark Twain's house or, famous historical things in Connecticut. And I had a warm spot for Connecticut, but I was letting him make his call. The day comes for the interview, the personal interview, which I agree with you. We had set up personal face-to-faces, right? It's a blizzard. I mean, it's a full-on nor'easter blizzard. Okay. My wife, God love her, my wife and her four-wheel drive, SUV, whatever, loads up Nick, and they drive from Massachusetts to the interview at Trinity.
Right.
Get their day. They're the only one. Everybody else canceled. The room was full of the people to do the interviews. And then they looked around. There's like six of them, Linda and my son, and they just said, "Okay, son, come on in." They leave the parents outside, right? Right. And we are convinced that because of that snowstorm, my son got into Trinity because
It, you're probably right. They looked and said, nobody else showed up. This kid really wants to get here and come here. He came all the way from Massachusetts. Let's get him in.
oh, he
That's
loved
what
it. He loved it.
works.
Anyway, that was the snowstorm admission story. Anyway, all right. So let's keep going on this. I want to just hit one or two more things, and then we're going to go back over your contact info,
Yeah.
what parents need to do, and the involvement of grandparents. In my first book, actually, which I wrote about grandparenting, we are very fortunate here in New England. We have lots of affluent grandparents. We tell them to keep your powder dry and wait, 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 because what happens is if they give the kids money and they give the parents money, it mucks everything up. So if we're giving them the wrong advice, you should tell me that, because we tell them to stay the heck out of it, right? Stay down your end of the court. And then once admission is gained and all that stuff, then they can help out. And if there's loans to pay off after the kids graduate, they can help out that way. And so we've done a lot of that. We actually have for chapter one of my book is called College at Half Off. And
Mm.
college at half off is when grandma and grandpa pay off all the college loans. So here's another one. Tell me about how you handle the mid-course correction. Now we do encounter a lot of kids. Like we have a child of one of our people who lacrosse player got some scholarship to go to Worcester of Ohio.
Yes.
Have you ever been there?
No.
He wasn't
I've
there
been to a
either.
lot of colleges, but not there. No.
Well, so he had a little bit of a colleges interruptus, after a
Right.
year. It was way out of his environment. So does your company work with people that have, let's just say, not a good choice the first time? Let's just put it that way. Let's just say they're changing course midstream. Tell me how that works.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. This is really important. That's why it is so important for parents to get their students involved in the process of using self-evaluation tools, their career goals, their assessments of being able to have skills at a certain type of institution. And what we do is we know the schools that would probably be a good fit for them after they go for their official visits. It is very important to try to stay away from a situation where you have to transfer after 2 or 3 years. In other words, it's really important because of money. If a student ends up transferring, what about if that school doesn't take the credits and you end up going for 5 to 5.5 years? I mean, if you do that at Providence College, that's going to cost you an extra $125,000 because you transferred and the new school didn't take the credits. So it is dire. I always say we have a 95% success rate to be able to place that student where the student says, I love it here. And there's a lot of things about that. You will find out your student's going to know at the official visit when they go visit the school and when they go back for the interview. They're going to know what schools they like, and they're going to know based on what we help them assess for their career activities, what they want to do for a career path. They're going to know what their study's going to be, what they may be, what they're strong at, and matchmaker skills. And then they're going to be able to pick the right major, and the rest is going to be history. They're going to love their college.
Yeah,
So we
interesting.
rarely get
Okay.
that. But for the family that does, to answer that question, we get some of those families after the fact, and they become our clients. We didn't do a good job at assessing. Our daughter went to the wrong school. It wasn't the right fit. She was lonely. It was a big city.
Yeah, yeah,
Things
all
like
that.
this, all that stuff. Well, guess what? You're going to have to start off elsewhere, but that's where a great state school, if you're from Connecticut, like UConn or a great one up in
Mm.
Massachusetts, UMass, these are good options. And the key is to not to overspend, but to still make sure that your student can pursue their dream in their career path, college choice, and major.
Yeah, tell me one more thing about the changes in the rules, because we hear a lot. Every financial advisor in the world, it cracks me up that
Yep.
every financial advisor that gets out of school, they got their new degree or whatever, and they start advising. And if you read all of these blogs online, these advisors, every one of them, tell your kids to go to state school, tell them to go to community college for 2 years. But meanwhile, when your son sits down at dinner and says, Dad, look at this letter, I got into Babson. I mean,
Mm.
you're not going to tell him to give it up and go to a state
No.
school in most cases, right? I mean, it's unrealistic. Everybody wants the best for their kids. And if they get into a premium school, now, not that state schools are bad, but,
Yeah.
if they're the kind of student that can get in to that, sort of upper
Babson.
crusty,
Yeah. Great
yeah,
entrepreneurial college.
it's a great
Absolutely.
school. So like in that situation nowadays, if somebody, let's say, makes the low cost decision first, community college or something, right? Tell me how that plays out, because a lot of other financial people in the industry that you're in tell parents, shoot the kids into the local community college for a couple of years to
No.
save money. What
No.
happens?
I'm not a big fan of community college just based on a track record of going to another state school or university. I'm not a big fan of that. I do believe, and I'll give you a great example. We had a young man who's very bright, top of the class at Glastonbury High School. I know his father, he's a good friend of mine. And the choice was simple. It does come down to money, unfortunately, for a lot of these families. Now, we know that this person was going to become a doctor. As a matter of fact, he's my doctor in Connecticut. So we know that this guy is going to have a great career no matter where he goes. But here's the deal. He got into Boston College and he got into UConn, two of his favorite schools. The fact was, Boston College at that time cost $75,000. The state school, because he was an in-student, UConn, cost 38,000. And then they'd have to go to medical school, which they don't have money for. So the bottom line is they wouldn't have been able to afford medical school, graduate school, things like that. So it came to a decision. Can UConn get this kid into medical school? And the answer was yes. Not only did he get into UConn without taking out loans, but the parent, he got scholarships. It cost him $12,000 a year to go to UConn based on all his scholarships that he had. It made sense because UConn can get him to where he needed to go, a good medical school. Guess what? He graduated from Boston College's medical school, and they spent most of the only money they had for medical school. There's not a day he doesn't thank me for helping him make that decision because he said, like my brother-in-law, he said, if I had chosen a private school like BC first and went to another school, medical school, I'd still be paying off college loans.
Yeah, it's
So,
true. It's true. I hear
you
that
got
from
to
my,
weigh the balance. Yeah, we all want. Now, typically, though, if he's not a medical doctor, but he's very bright and he's entrepreneurial, by all means, it does make sense to send your son to Babson, great entrepreneurial college, business school. And you know what? If you can afford it, fine. If not, well, I've had people go to UConn, get straight A's in the first year. I had a student go to the University of Vermont. He got straight A's, finished #1 in his freshman class, and transferred into Babson, and they accepted him and gave him money in his second year.
Wow.
And he
Okay.
could not get into Babson. He didn't get into Babson, which was his dream school. I said, Alex, go out and make impact. Go to Vermont. You got in, do a great job. He got straight A's, didn't miss anything less than an A plus. Sent the letter over, tried again in the second year, wrote a letter to the dean of the school, said my first year I didn't get in. I think I've worked really hard at Vermont. Would you consider me? And he got into Babson University.
Yeah, that's a good story. That's actually a good story to wrap on. But now let's
Yep.
talk about how folks get a hold of you. And I want to remind everybody, of course, that all the information on the college planning company that Dave represents is going to be on our website. You'll be able to download it. It'll be under resources under Smart Financial. You'll be able to get it. But let you, because I know you're a shy guy, let
Mm,
me let
very shy.
you give the plug for contact information. I know you're talking to me from Naples, Florida, but a lot
Right.
of your team is in, I think, Rocky Hill.
Rocky Hill, Connecticut.
Yep.
And we've got offices down in Naples and we've got them across the country, quite a few satellites.
Yeah, 42 states, I think you told me you're in
We're
42
in
different states.
42
Yeah.
states. Right. So somebody listening might be in one of those states. We usually work in those states as
So
well.
you parents or grandparents that are looking at kids at 15 or 16, right, that want to get this thing, going in the right direction, listen up to how you get a hold of Dave and his company. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, my address. First of all, my email address, advancedcollegeplanning.net, our website, advancedcollegeplanning.net. My email, D as in David, Martin, Martin, ACP, ACP stands for Advanced College Planning, dmartinacp@gmail.com. Our phone number, 860-721-6110, and we offer a free consultation.
All
And I
right.
did want to leave on one last word, if you don't
Good.
mind.
Let's do it. Stick
Parents,
it in.
can I just give one last word?
Sure.
Parents, we didn't talk about funding college educations, but that's very important too, because the colleges, you're probably not going to get a full ride. Less than 1% of the American public gets a full ride. However, get out there early. Get out there early because it's so expensive. Like I said, I was only half kidding, but as soon as the child is born, open up a 529 college savings plan. Get started in the process so it can be a lot easier for you and your 3 kids or 2 kids, how many kids you have, and you can get this dizzying and daunting process done. Let us know if we can help.
All right. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Dave Miller. I really appreciate this. For all of the followers on our channel of Smart Financial, by all means, reach out to us. If you have trouble getting a hold of folks that are on our podcast, we can connect you up with these great people at college planning so they can solve all college planning stress. Stress reduction will extend your life expectancy. So if you're a parent like Cheryl Teagues, the famous model who had twins at 47,
What?
talk about late life planning. I just read
Well,
that.
she was in good shape though.
Yeah, well, I think we won't go there, Dave, but I'll talk about that the next time I see you. Okay. Thank you to everybody who's watching, and I'll see you again next time on Smart Financial.
Bye now. Thank
Bye.
you.